The impudence, the audacity, the unmitigated gall of those Knuckleheads of Liberty podcasters, daring to voice opinions outside the mainstream of accepted thought. Listen if you dare. It's angry, it's funny, it's even sometimes sad, but it's always based on freedom and justice, as you will see. Here's our host, Jason McPhee.
Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty. We are coming at you on December 12th, 2022, almost through 2 years of Biden, which just seems like... and I'm not sure. It's almost like a roller coaster. Are we about to head off a cliff? Who knows? But we've got a lot of other things to talk about. But before we get into that, let me introduce you to our panel. In our upper left-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. In our upper right-hand corner, we have our screaming eagle of freedom, Tim Everett. He is a pilot in the state of California. My name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. Twitter. Everybody's talking about Twitter. Everybody's talking about other things on Twitter. But right now, everything's talking about Twitter on Twitter, it sounds like, because Elon Musk has bought the company and he is sort of airing out the dirty laundry that's been going on. And that dirty laundry has been suppression. We were aware of the whole Hunter Biden laptop scandal that happened. Of course, if Twitter had its way back then, we wouldn't have been aware of it. And maybe we could bring up the visual. So this was something where it very much appears now that the U.S. government was trying to suppress this information before an election because as we heard from Zuckerberg at Facebook, he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he literally said, yes, the FBI came to us just a little bit before the Hunter Biden laptop broke, and they said, look out for a big Russian disinformation campaign coming. It's going to be a big story breaking. They didn't say what it was, but of course, that was the story that was breaking. The New York Post broke that story. The New York Times apparently is a history book because they didn't start reporting on this until a couple years after it was. Yes. So I guess if you want the news, you better go to the Post instead of the Times. But anyways, the New York Post had broke this Hunter Biden laptop story weeks before the election. Yes. Was while voting, I guess, was going on, and Twitter froze them out of their accounts. They blocked anybody who was trying to share anything
or retweet. Yes.
And of course, the latest of the left now on this whole thing is to just say, and I'm going to say a word that's probably okay on this, but essentially they're phrasing it as dick pics, of Hunter Biden is what they're talking about, and that's all that the Republicans cared about, was sharing that. No, of course, the real issue of what was going on that laptop was essentially influence peddling of the Biden family with foreign governments and foreign entities, in essentially Hunter Biden having emails that saying he's bringing back bags of cash for the big guy, which was most likely Joe Biden. But these are things that we couldn't even get into investigating like good journalists should, because most of the mainstream wouldn't even touch this. And the New York Post put it out there, as a good journalist should, and they were literally frozen out by Twitter. And so Elon Musk has bought the company, and he is airing this stuff out. He initially shared his first break with Matt Taibbi, where he unloaded a lot of files with him. And then he's sharing it with Barry Weiss. And these are respected sort of neutral journalists, I guess you might call them. They're not mainstream. They have their own Substacks. And Barry Weiss used to be on the New York Times, but she left because she felt like it was becoming a crazy Wokesville over there. Mm-hmm. And by the way, she is literally an out lesbian. I believe she's married to another woman. So, I mean, this is not, these are not like right-wing journalists who are just out to get people or anything else. These are people who just, they can't believe the illiberalness of the mainstream media and the Democrat Party at this point in the way they're trying to suppress speech and information. But Elon Musk is sharing this information. And the crazy thing is Matt Taibbi, he sent this information to Matt Taibbi at first. And Matt Taibbi made a statement within his first article, his first release on this stuff. And he said that there doesn't appear, though, to be a direct link to government. Well, it turns out that Elon Musk hadn't completely cleaned house at Twitter, because the guy who was still in charge of I guess the legal department was a guy named Jonathan Turley, or is this Jonathan Turley, or is this this is somebody else? This is Baker.
No, this is Jim Baker. Jim Baker used to be the chief counsel of the FBI, and he was at Twitter reviewing the documents.
Yeah. And so this is a picture of Jim Baker. For some reason, the article, I guess, is on jonathanturley.org. So don't confuse that. We're not trying to get misinformation here. But Baker apparently was, he had this connection with the FBI, and he was going through and he was filtering everything before it went to Matt Taibbi. Yes. So they immediately had to stop their review and go back and ask for the uncensored stuff, because, literally a guy from the FBI working for Twitter, suddenly there's no reference to any connection with the FBI. I wonder how that happened.
Yeah.
But this is just absolutely insane, and it's showing that yes, the Democrat Party has essentially tampered with an election by their own definition. They accused Russia of tampering with an election for spreading misinformation before the 2016 election, and they said Russia over and over and over again for spreading misinformation, which, by the way, our government does all the time in other countries as well. But aside from that, they were totally tied up about this, and this is clearly spreading misinformation by trying to suppress actual stories and promoting people like those heads of former intel that were coming out and saying, yes, this was Russian misinformation about the Hunter Biden laptop story before there was ever any investigation on it. So anyways, sorry, it's a huge litany, but this is a complicated story. I'll throw it to you guys now.
It is a complicated story indeed. I mean, all along, I think from the very beginning, we always knew that these big tech companies, social media companies, they have been after people on the right primarily. There have been a few people on the left they have gone after. Probably Glenn Greenwald probably will fall into that category. But they have been solely after people on the right. Okay, fine. They are a private company. They can go after whoever the hell they want to. I'm fine with that. But when these people start working at the behest of the government, represented by the FBI, represented by the Department of Homeland Security, or the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, when they start doing things at the behest of these people, we have the government actually censoring private citizens. Talk about a huge violation of free speech rights. This is what is going on. These people are no longer acting as private organizations. Now, in name, they may be private organizations. In their financial structure, they may be private organizations, but they are doing the dirty work of the federal government. This is a dangerous situation for us as citizens in what is supposed to be a constitutional republic. We have a real problem with these social media companies. Now, I am truly glad that Elon Musk is bringing this thing to light, because I am sure it is occurring in other social media companies too, right? We just don't know the extent as yet. Zuckerberg gave us a little bit of a hint, because the FBI went to some people in Facebook. Zuckerberg said this, and they told them, "No, there's this big major story coming, blah blah blah," and that kind of stuff. You know what is even more disgusting about this story? That Hunter Biden laptop, which they end up censoring, the FBI had control of that laptop 1 year before the 2020 elections. They knew it was not Russian disinformation. They knew. Okay, but still they were putting out all the little teases. Oh yes, there's this big dump of information coming, and it could be Russian disinformation. Just be careful. Just look for it. They knew the laptop was real and genuine, and they were talking about the corruption in the Biden family. They knew this, but yet they wanted to interfere with the 2020 elections, and that is what they did. And apparently did it successfully because Joe Biden still ended up being president.
Wow, that's good. I can understand people in the ruling class being behind this kind of stuff. This suppression of information that would harm the people that they want in power. It's all about the power. They want them there. However, I just I can't understand, looking at it from the standpoint of some executives at a social media company, what behooves them now. Okay, maybe they're in alignment with the FBI and those other people in the ruling class that are trying to suppress the information to get their candidate in there, and maybe they're against the other candidate, the bad guy, Trump, or whoever it might be, whatever flavor of the month or of the election season that particular person might be. I can I can get that there's an alignment, but where I don't get it is, how can they, with good conscience, look at themselves in the mirror and say, "Hey, this is all hunky dory with me. I'm going to do the bidding of these entities, of these alphabet soup entities of the federal government. I'm going to roll over and do whatever they want." Why? Because it's in alignment with my principles or whatever it might be. I don't get that. How can you possibly think that's okay? That's not immoral to do that. And because today it's a whole new ball game. I mean, back in the old days when it was just watch Channel 3, Channel 10, Channel 13 news, and that was it. And it came on from 6 till whatever it was, and then it came back on at 11, and then it was gone. All right, I'm talking, because I have gray hair, I remember that history did not begin, when you were born. It was even further back than that, believe it or not. I know now this is potentially misinformation, but history really did begin a long time ago. And so I just don't get it. How can these executives be in cahoots with these top-down central planning federal entities, these power brokers trying to broker power in their favor? Don't get it. Can someone explain that to me?
Yeah. Personally, my theory is that, having listened to Jonathan Haidt before, I think there's sort of a trail of connections here. One is, he talks about in his studies about how the universities have become essentially left-wing echo chambers over the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 generations at least. He talks about back in maybe the 60s, you might have had social science departments that were 65-35 split, maybe between conservatives and the left, right? And now it's literally a 20-1 split, where, you have some departments where there may not be a conservative voice on them in some universities. And so this is creating a huge distortion. And this is where I go a little beyond him, but all of the people, right, who are going on to be teachers and everything else and journalists are all going through these universities. They are all going through this echo chamber. They sort of have to understand this way of thinking in order to survive. And then, of course, these ideas filter right back into the K through 12 schools. They filter into the media, and it's just sort of think about oh gosh, what's that movie with Donald Sutherland, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where, comes right out of San Francisco. These aliens take over people's minds, essentially recreating their bodies, and pretty soon it's just a hive mind, Well, I think that's kind of a good analogy at least that's my theory about what's going on. So it's not really that it's being directed top down from everybody on exactly what's happening, but it's just naturally sort of occurring that way, I think, by the incentives, government funding, the universities, government monopoly of the public schools, and it just sort of happens. That's my thought, anyway.
So you're chalking up this these people in cahoots with the ruling class as just simply not having learned that it's immoral to suppress the other side, is because they've been invaded by the body snatchers and now they have no mind of their own. Is that it, basically?
They think they're suppressing immoral people, right? They think they're doing God's work. I mean, imagine the Inquisition burning some guy at the stake who didn't believe that, said he wouldn't go along with whatever the paradigm of the Inquisition was, right? I mean, they said, well, it's okay because we're doing God's work, right?
Yeah, yeah. So then, and that might be it. So what they're doing is, this is what we want to see happen. And oh, by the way, the FBI just told us there's going to be this new story coming out, and we better suppress it, or it's going to help it's going to help the Democrats to win if we suppress it. So it's right up their alley. Is that it? Kind of.
Well, keep in mind too, a lot of these people who are in government, also, where are they coming from? They went through the university, right? They went through the government schools. They've had the 12 plus years of indoctrination to believe in all this crazy PC stuff now, where they can't even tell you what a woman is, apparently. I mean, that's literally where it's gotten to.
But then, Jason, you must be saying that there is some sort of pandemic of woke ideology infecting too many of us, infecting too much of society. There must be some sort of pandemic ongoing that we haven't yet found a very good vaccine for. I mean, I think we on this show probably know what the vaccine is, but apparently go ahead, Tim. Go ahead.
We are the vaccine.
Exactly. We on this show know what the vaccine is, but not enough of society apparently know this. But one point I want to bring up about this.
Before you go on, just so in case you're not getting it as the audience, liberty is the vaccine. Free markets is the vaccine.
Exactly.
Okay, go ahead.
Exactly. Thanks for that clarification. But there's another issue here with these social media platforms that nobody is discussing. Okay. Now notice that almost every time we have one of these major suppression of stories like the Hunter Biden laptop story, notice it happens across nearly all the platforms: Google, Facebook, Twitter. It happens across all the platforms almost simultaneously. So it seemed to suggest, now I have no proof of this, but I'm going to say it because the suggestion is very strong, that these social media companies are colluding. Now that is illegal in the United States. It's illegal for companies which are supposed to be competitors colluding. Okay? And I think this is happening. It seems to suggest that look at what happened with the Hunter Biden laptop. First Twitter, then Facebook, then Google. All of them suppressed the story in a matter of 24 hours, I think, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe 48 hours. But it was done. So are these companies colluding? The evidence seems to suggest it. Now, I have no evidence of it. I have nothing. But if you look at all these signs of what is going on, there seems to be collusion going on. And that is illegal and should be investigated.
Apparently, Leon sees a lot of ducks walking like ducks.
Well,
and if they're walking like ducks, then there must be ducks.
They must be ducks, yes.
Well, it is interesting that too to see how upset everybody has gotten once one of the social media platforms steps out of line, which is ironically is Twitter now, because Elon Musk has bought Twitter and is now showing us the dirt under the carpet. And
so you mean the ruling class is got their panties in a bunch over it? Is that what's going on?
Exactly.
So imagine somebody got into the Ministry of Truth in Orwell's novel, how upset that would make everybody. He started publishing a few stories that didn't match all of the other history that they were printing up, the news and history. But
just in this day and age with the popularity of these platforms, it gives all of us power. It does in a way. And we all have the power to disseminate, what's truthful and what's not. And because we all have a voice, and it can be, well, outside of my friends list, the public stuff, the people put up there can be disseminated to millions of people and immediately, so it's got a lot of power. And like everything else that has a lot of power, you've got people that are going to want to wield it for their own personal interests.
Yeah. Well, what's shocking too about all this is that once Elon Musk bought Twitter, or started talking about buying Twitter, and that was a saga in and of itself, him finally landing on the purchase. But Joe Biden and the Democrats immediately started talking about investigating him and whether or not he should be able to own a social media platform. One of their best buddies, the guy who owns Amazon, owns the Washington Post. I can't remember
Jeff
the guy's name.
Bezos.
Bezos. That's it. Yeah. So if you contribute to the Democrat Party, oh my gosh, you can have all of the propaganda mills you want, but if you suddenly are not in their camp, gosh, we really better look more closely at you.
Yeah.
They're not.
All of a sudden, you become a Russian asset of some kind,
Yes.
You're spreading Russian misinformation and disinformation, and on they go. And the storyline is basically always the same. If you don't agree with us, you are an enemy, and you must be working with the Russians. And this is the storyline they have been pushing for the longest while. Look at when Trump won the election. Immediately, Trump became a Russian asset. Out of the blues, he became a Russian asset. And he was investigated as such, as a Russian asset. It all turned out to be lies.
Yep.
But this is what happened. When you're not in line with these people on the left, with this deep state that seemed to be quite active, you become a Russian asset. Yeah. It's a real problem.
And they've accused Tulsi Gabbard of being a Russian asset because she criticized Kamala Harris running in the election. And it's just insane, the amount of, the hysterics that they're ginning up against Russia in their 2-minute hate. Not that Russia doesn't have a lot of bad things going on with its leader, Putin, but the idea to try to make them this focal point of anything that's bad that you don't like, somehow it's connected to Russia. And where that can lead to is something kind of dangerous because, guess what? We weren't in a war with Russia while Trump was president. We sort of are in a war with Russia, or at least a proxy war with Russia at the moment. And does it maybe if you've been ginning people up with your 2-minute hates for 4 years, Russia constantly, do you think maybe that could have something to do with getting in to a conflict with a nuclear power? I mean, this is dangerous stuff. But anyways, the suppression, though, it's not just, as we've said on the media and social media. It's not just about Trump and, winning the election. There's a lot of other dangerous stuff going on as well. And we experienced this recently on our show. We did a show about a week or two ago on a movie called The Innovation Race. And James, maybe I could get the visual again. So The Innovation Race is a movie that tries to raise awareness about intellectual property theft with China and the idea of having strong intellectual property laws that could therefore potentially help America in the amount of trade and goods that we produce here for trade, competitiveness essentially. And we were told that it was literally the show was filtered by Facebook before it even ran. We hadn't even run a trailer or anything else. And thanks, James. James just shared an email that we got, and essentially they disabled it because they said that let's see, it says here that our policies prohibit people from posting content that infringes on someone else's rights or otherwise violates the law. Okay, so this is literally, and of course we've sent appeals, and they have been blocking us from being able to show the show. And all we were showing is a trailer on the show. And we actually had somebody connected with the show who was given to us by the show to help, put out the show and information, because this is literally a movie, a documentary that has just been made, and it's out there, and it's essentially talking about, like I said, our competitiveness, global competitiveness, and issues with IP with China. And so let me go back to our other, James, can we share? Thanks. So just to let you know, this is not just crazy lies or anything else like this. I want to show you the biographies of people who are involved with this show. Okay. We literally have Representative Thomas Massey. He is a conservative representative in the House, and he is featured prominently in the show, talking about his experience with intellectual property and creating a little invention to help move chickens, with solar power around without having to watch them. So essentially the little cage moves on its own so that the chickens can keep moving along with the cage and essentially just not be sitting in their own filth. And so that was one of the people who was in the show. Another is Democrat Senator Chris Coons is also featured prominently in the show too, and they talk about the main pitch. There's judges who were involved, and just lots of different people. This was a deputy, Laura Peters, it says was a deputy undersecretary of commerce. I mean, they're just kind of a lot of people with a lot of credibility in this area. And we're told by Facebook that these essentially are lies, and they're going to block them. And I just can't imagine why. And this is before we even aired the show. This is just putting up the fact that we were going to talk about the innovation race, period. That's all that the description said. And we were blocked on Facebook, which is just outrageous. And this this is essentially a national security issue, right? Because what's this show about? This is about China and our trade competitiveness. Now, as libertarians, we may or may not disagree with some of the points of the show, but the idea that it can't be talked about is insane. Anyways, let me throw it to you guys. This is just crazy.
Well, I have one question. If my rights are potentially going to be trampled by somebody that is for strict gun control that affect my rights, does that mean that Facebook is not going to put that up? They can't say, hey, I'm in favor of so-and-so gun control law, because it tramples on my rights. So I think Facebook got to come up here and be consistent, stop being so hypocritical, and defend my rights by not allowing that person to espouse his gun control views. Is that what happens? Or is it just somebody else's rights? It's just, whose rights are we talking about? Anyway, it's all, never mind. Ideas should be allowed to flourish or wither on the vine according to their merits.
Exactly.
And here we are.
And the whole thing is that the answer for bad speech is good speech.
Yeah.
And I don't know why Facebook and these social media companies have suddenly taken up the role of God, that they could decide what is disinformation and what is good information. I don't know how they got that right. Okay. But like I said before, sure, there are private companies and all that, but when they start working for the government, they are no longer acting as private companies. So I don't know where they get this godlike power from to suddenly decide that certain people cannot say certain things. And in our particular case, in this particular case, which is even more disgusting, we did not say anything as yet. We did not say anything as yet. Before we just put up our intent to say something, and they thought they had to censor that.
Yeah. So it was literally just a discussion. It listed the person's name who we were interviewing, which is a colonel. The name escapes me at the moment. John Mills, I think that was his name. Colonel John Mills, and his role in the movie, The Innovation Race. And that was all. I mean, we didn't talk about, the fact that we were attacking China or anything like that. And just the idea that alone was enough to, hit some filter button over at Facebook Meta, right? That, this is absolutely crazy. And the other odd thing, too, is that I believe the show was actually able to post afterwards, but we just weren't able to stream it live, which kind of suggests that this is some kind of set algorithm that literally that title triggered, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So,
Indeed.
I just like this. Just occurred to me. Facebook was the original name. Where are you talking about? Oh, faces, and where it's a book. It's got information on coming from these faces. To change the name from that, which was appropriate for Facebook when it started, to metadata. We're collecting your metadata, baby, and you better like it. That's so appropriate. The new so-called Facebook, no longer it's about faces and things written down. No, it's about your metadata, baby cakes, and you had better like it being suppressed and being controlled and being dictated. And there you have it. Perfect name. Thank you, Zuckerberg. You nailed it with that new name for your company that is now just another entity of the federal government. It just doesn't have an alphabet name, but it's got an appropriate name.
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of funny too, the sly way these companies are changing their names and the social media, where Google had started out with something about no evil, and they removed that part from from their slogan, which is just crazy. But anyway, this has me so triggered, Tim. It just want to get to Good Guys with Guns story.
Okay, well, this is historic. This Good Guys with Guns, or a gun, because it's the shortest one I've ever done, or we've ever done. A man with a concealed carry license shot and wounded an armed carjacker during an exchange of gunfire in North Austin on the west side early Monday. The man was in his car in the 5500 block of West Crystal Street, where the carjacker fired at him around 1:25 a.m., which, by the way, this is when bad things happen, early in the morning and in the middle of the night. Usually. Chicago police said, this was in Chicago. The man, our good guy, returned fire and hit the carjacker in the chest, police said. He was taken to Loyola University Medical Center in critical condition. His gun was recovered at the scene. He must have dropped it. The man with the concealed carry license was not injured. There we have it.
Wow. A good guy with a gun, most definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And taking fire, but he dishes it right back.
Right back.
And he's just a little more accurate. Maybe he practiced a little
bit. That's
right. Which, by the way, again, if you're going to carry, you should practice.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Despite the efforts of Lori Lightfoot, Chicago is just a little bit safer today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just one guy, lowly guy with a gun, has improved things where Lori Lightfoot could not.
There you go.
Well, I think this will transition us to the last topic we wanted to talk about, and this sort of blends in with our Knucklehead Noise Patrol, so we'll throw that in the end as well. So this is kind of a little bit out of left field, but it's once again, it's the Biden administration's hands all over it, and it's about prisoner exchanges with who else? Russia. So we had a situation where famous. Well, I guess if you're one of the few watchers of WNBA basketball, a prominent player, I guess is the way to describe it in the league, Brittany Griner. Yes. She was arrested, and we talked about this on the show a while back, but she was arrested around the time that the tension started in Ukraine, and she's a WNBA basketball player who was visiting Russia. I believe it was basketball related visit, and she took some vape pens with her that had cannabis oil, I guess, in it, and so she was arrested, and she wound up admitting to it. So it's not like this is something where falsely accused or anything. But politics being what they were, she was given a very harsh sentence of 9 years in prison for carrying in these vape sticks to Russia. And but aside from the issue, the libertarian issue of whether or not somebody should be able to do what they want with their own body, this brings up a whole different issue when the United States started petitioning to get her out of there. And it was kind of crazy because Joe Biden was so fixated on efforts to get her out, and most likely because of identity politics. Brittany Griner is a out of the closet lesbian who is married to another woman, and so this is kind of big on the identity politics radar. And so he made it
she's also black.
Oh yeah, yes, she's also black as well. And so he made this such a priority that when we were before the G20 summit, and we were literally talking, nuclear weapons was coming up in the conversations about our conflict with Russia. And Biden was interviewed by, I think it was on CNN, and they asked him, are you going to talk with Russia at all during the summit? Because they wanted to know if he was going to, sort of relax or had any plans to change direction with Ukraine. And he said, no, I have no plans at all, unless they want to talk about Brittany Griner. I mean, we're literally, the potential nuclear Armageddon. No, we're not going to talk about it. Oh, but you want to talk about this basketball player who's being held over there. Okay, we can talk about that. And so anyways, they finally negotiated a prisoner release. And it comes to be that apparently there are multiple prisoners over there. And one of them is a man who had served in our military and has been over there for about 4 years now, and has not admitted guilt. They claimed he was trying to carry out espionage because they said somebody handed him a USB stick, and he's saying that no, he didn't do that. And yet he is being held over there. And he's still there. So there's no huge, cry by the Biden administration to get this guy out, at least until people started bringing up his name around Brittany Griner once they made this prisoner swap. And by the way, the guy that they exchanged for Brittany Griner is called the Merchant of Death. And he is an arms dealer that, for a libertarian, maybe we wouldn't see a huge issue necessarily with somebody being labeled an arms dealer, but our government has labeled this guy a terrorist. Okay. And they said he's responsible indirectly for many American deaths. And there's no reason to believe he wouldn't go right back to doing what he was doing before if we let him out. But they've made this exchange to get Griner out, and of course they've left this other person out. Now, the issue with Paul Whelan here is that the Biden administration is trying to now claim that, well, they were never given a choice, so we took Griner because that was the only choice we were given. But it appears, yes, they apparently were given a choice because apparently CBS reported that they were given the choice of Griner or Whelan early on.
I think it was NBC, not CBS, Jason.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry. Was it NBC?
It was NBC.
Yes, it was NBC. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to malign CBS here. But apparently NBC had reported it this way. And then, just like we're talking about with all of this media manipulation, they went back and they stealth edited it to say in the story that they were not given a choice of Whelan, and it was only Griner later on. So this is, just, I don't know. I mean, identity politics on stilts, it's sort of just race, sexual orientation, right to the top of the charts with the Biden administration. It's the way they lead off everything, the way they sit there and they talk about all their hires. I mean, remember, Biden, if you have any doubts, when Biden picked his VP candidate and his Supreme Court nomination, both of them he said ahead of time, I want a black woman. So, if he wanted one so bad, it kind of begs the question, why didn't you go and marry one? Anyways.
What was worse about the Supreme Court selection because that she don't even know what a woman is. So I don't know how he fulfilled his promise to us that he was going to pick a black woman because she don't know what a woman is. So I don't know I don't understand this.
Would you guys have any thoughts about this whole thing with, prisoner swaps and identity politics? Because this really just seems like, we just can't get away from these identity politics things, just from basic things like, a person, an American citizen is captured in another country, but if they don't fit the right identity politic, they don't get.
They have to check the right box, right? They have to check the right box, otherwise they're gonna get left behind. Okay, now. In this particular case, it is true. It is, this girl, well, she's a woman, I say, made a mistake. She was kind of stupid, really, when you think about it, to be taking cannabis oil into another country. At least she should be aware of the laws, okay? But she made a mistake and she ended up in prison there. But why should she jump to the top of in terms of trying to get someone out or get someone home, which I think, okay, the government, the US government should be trying to get as much of our people at home as possible. But why should she jump to the top just because of her race and sexual identity? Why? But this is the kind of politics, the insane woke politics that the left plays. And Joe Biden is falling. Well, I don't know if Joe Biden is really doing, because he don't know on certain days, he don't know what the hell his name is, and he don't know if he's president or not. So it had to be somebody in this administration carrying out these policies. Why should she be at the top of the list in terms of being released? I'm glad she is. She's in the prime of her career. I'm glad she is, but why should she be at the top of the list? I see no reason for it. But this is a woke nonsense that is going on in our society. Even the military now is being transformed into this woke institution. God help us with these people. We might have to die first before these people realize, oh my goodness, we're making some serious errors in judgment here. God help us.
Well, yeah. First of all, I'm not going to take, not that I ever did, but I'm not going to take advice on who should own guns and who shouldn't from a guy that releases an international arms dealer with a track record.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not number one. First off,
or arms a terrorist organization.
Yes, or that. Yeah. I'm trying to be specific to the story, Jason. I'm not trying to branch off here. So and you've got. Oh, if anything. The person there the longest gets to go to the top of the list, not the woman or the lesbian or the so-called Olympic star or any of that BS. Okay, none of that happens. None of that matters. Number one. Number two, let's get a tit for tat, a little bit more even exchange here. Instead, we've got an international arms dealer being exchanged for somebody that came with a little cannabis oil in her stupid vape pen. Seriously, that's ridiculous on its own merit just by that. We're not talking, in any way, shape, matter, or form, an equality of the exchange of prisoners here. As far as, I guess Russia just loves their arms dealers or something. I don't know, but why do we love our Olympic players that happen to be have to check all the social wokeness boxes? Why? Yeah, I don't get that. And I don't know, Leon doesn't either. He's obviously expressed that. So all those things. And so if Russia, even if it was true, if they had no choice, let's say they did, we shouldn't have given them a choice with this arms dealer. It was, look, we're not going to give you this arms dealer for Brittany. That's ludicrous. And it is. It's ludicrous. And we would at least be talking in terms that the Russians would understand, coming from a place of staunch, we're going to stand by what we want here. We want, the Marine and this stupid, idiotic, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Oh, she forgot that.
She forgot that, yes.
She forgot all about that. Okay. I'm sorry. I don't care if you're 10 years old and you've got your whole life in front of you, if you're that stupid, you need 9 years to frickin' get a brain. Okay, so I mean, I would have locked her up just for being stupid if I was a Russian guy. Never mind the cannabis. I just locked for pure stupidity. And so, yeah. I mean, just this whole thing is just so out of whack. I don't know where to begin. And so I'm going to end right there.
Well, it's funny too, the timing with all this. Nancy Pelosi, apparently she was released just as the Congress is passing a Marriage Equality Act, right? And at the same time, Nancy Pelosi comes out and says, this is such a wonderful thing for the entire world, right? Whereas, now, like I said, as far as I'm concerned, that it should be Britney's body, Britney's choice, and this kind of thing. But we are dealing with an issue that she went in and broke somebody else's laws, right? I mean, she knowingly went there and did that. And the fact too that apparently this is all about showmanship too, because not only did they release her because of the identity politics, they released her because the identity politics aligns directly with the legislation. I mean, you talk about packaging and putting on a show. This is just such a mockery of what justice should be about. And in the end, if we're going to have any kind of government, that should be priority one, is that government is just.
Yeah, that's it. I think you brought a good point. It's not about justice. It's not about an effective military. It's all about politics today. Everything's politicized.
And wokeness.
Up to the that aspect of it. So it's just completely unhinged, and that's why we're going downhill here, folks. You can think it's wonderful stuff. And some of it is, like I'm all for marriage equality. For what? No, let me go back. I'm all for getting the government out of the marriage business scene completely. Yes. That's what I'm for. Back the way it was back in the old days. Well, don't go back too far, because I mean you're going to get a lot of government interference in marriage. Okay, as I know, history did not begin when I was born. So I will reiterate that fact. And but at the same time, it should be like everything else, a mutually beneficial exchange. And the church, if you're out, never mind. I'm going off topic.
I want to go slightly off topic here, but it's related. Okay, there's one aspect of this story here that is highlighting the media's role in our decline. Okay, you see what happened here with NBC sort of editing this story just to make the Biden administration look good, or look better, I should say, or less bad maybe. They edited the story quietly. NBC did the very same thing with that story related with Nancy. You just brought up Nancy Pelosi here. Her husband, was assaulted and all that kind of stuff and things like that.
Yeah.
When that reporter reported what happened, how Paul Pelosi opened the door and he walked back in. He didn't try to run into the arms of the police to say, save me or anything like that. He walked back in and then he was assaulted. Okay. Yeah. When the reporter brought it out, the NBC reporter brought it out, they took down the story, they scrubbed their website, and they suspended the reporter.
Yeah, they made the reporter disappear.
He disappeared. He went into a witness protection program, as far as we know.
Yeah, so nobody else could ask him about the story, right? I mean, that's the reason they made him disappear, because his story was out. Other people got the video, like Fox News and others, and they were showing it. But there's no way to contact him because they've made him disappear, right?
Disappear.
Yeah.
So there's the government again. There's NBC working with the government to try to clean up the nonsense that is occurring in our society. Okay? But NBC, again, the media in cahoots with the government, doing dirty work for them.
Ministry
Okay.
of Truth. There you go. Yeah. Well, anyways, this does lead into the final point, and it's a good way to leave on the show. But so maybe I could get the visual up again, James. So our Knucklehead of the week is related to this Brittany Griner thing, and so if you're Paul Whelan, you should we're saying this one for you, so maybe you can feel a little better out there. I don't know, you're still behind bars, but apparently Van Jones on CNN was part of a discussion on the whole how wonderful it is that they released Griner, and what he said in there says, "So I don't see this as a bad sign for Paul Whelan." The idea that he's being left behind, and he's been there for 4 years. Okay. He said, "I don't see this as a bad sign for Paul Whelan. I think of it as a good sign for what Americans can do when we stand together." So, like, we're not standing together then for Paul Whelan. We're only standing together for Brittany Griner.
Oh, we're not.
That's outrageous. How disgusting that somebody would say this is like, he might as well have a whatever color robe the new clan of the Democrat Party is wearing. He might as well be wearing it, because that's exactly the type of statement you would have expected a racist from the 1940s South to have said, about a black person being
listen,
unjustly
you
treated.
just had to listen.
So,
if you listen to the language of the left these days, you just have to go back to the days of Jim Crow, and you see there very prominently in newspapers all over. That's the language of the left these days. It's all dressed up, it's all pretty up. Oh, we have compassion, we have tolerance, and we have all this other damn nonsense they like to tell us. But the language is the exact language of the Jim Crow days. Lord God help us.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully we've offered a little bit of insight and levity for you. But we'll see you again next week, and until then, stay free.
Yes, indeed.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.